We're in Sonoma County, California today, doing a video on dead arm disease and Eutypa management. We're going to talk about the symptoms, the organisms, and the disease progression. I'm going to go over that pretty quickly because there's other resources for people to find those specifics on. Then we're going to go out to the Vineyard and actually do some hands-on dead arm management. There are two main organisms involved with dead arm disease, and they're Eutypa species and Botrosphaeria species. They are fungi that infect new pruning wounds and live internally in the vine and slowly kill the wood. The cankers are areas of dead wood that the spores infect, so these can be any wounds. Pruning wounds, tractor wounds, grafting, retraining wounds, and they grow slowly, maybe 2 to 5 inches a year. The Eutypa cankers are often associated with stunted shoots in the springtime. The bot cankers are not, but if you look at either kind of canker in cross-section, the cankers will be a little pie shape there. That's the dead area. It's called a pie canker, and it's very typical for both these organisms in dead arm. Fresh pruning wounds, or any other kind of injury to the vine, will be susceptible to infection when it's raining or heavy fog or irrigation. The spores are living in the dead wood, and they come out during the rain, and they're splashed onto those pruning wounds and other wounds, and that's how the vines get infected. You will see new infections starting in a vineyard maybe from about 2 or 3 years old, but it doesn't look that bad. Most growers don't start doing Eutypa or dead arm management until the vineyard is maybe 10 years old, 15 years old, and that's really too late to start. You can see in this graph how the incidence of dead arm increases every year. In this graph, the blue line is the theoretical yield of a vineyard with no dead arm. The red line is the yield of a vineyard with no dead arm management. In the next graph, cumulative net return over 25 years for an acre with no health issues is $93,543 versus a net loss of $50,785 for an acre with no dead arm management. The later you wait in the season, the better. There are fewer spores later in the season. If you can't prune late in the season, you can prune a long prune like that, and then right before bud break, come cut it back. It can get infected up here, but then you chop it off before it gets into the vine. This is an example of double pruning. They've cut off the majority of the canopy. They'll come back in shortly and cut it down to the 2 bud spurs on the final cut. Any infections that got into the top here will then be removed. Pruning wound protectants are materials that you put on the prune to keep it from getting infected. They are a number of products. The latest one is called Vitaseal, and there are a lot of growers who are using Vitaseal right now. This table shows how effective the 3 methods are that I just talked about. Topsin was a new material at the time this work was done, but it doesn't mean to imply that it's the best product to use. This table shows the cost of each practice relative to standard pruning, and this table shows the cumulative net returns per acre when using the 3 different preventative practices if they are started in year 3, or started in year 5, or started in year 10 of the vineyard's life. The efficacy of the practices vary according to different research literature. In addition to regular pruning, growers often need to make larger wounds on the vine for retraining systems or for tea budding. If you have to do that, you can leave a stub maybe 8, 10, 12 inches, and then come back in the dry season, whatever that is anymore. It used to be June, but maybe July, when you know you have a good long dry period, and then cut it completely back. Those big wounds take a long time to heal, and if you can do it in the dry season, there is no risk of getting infection. Cutting out deadwood is something that growers do, and they do it okay, but it can be done much better. This is a picture of a vine that has been cut back, but they didn't cut back quite far enough. You can see the pie canker there. You can also see that the shoots haven't stopped growing. So it's still in the rainy season. The grower's waiting until the dry season. And then on the other cordon, you can see that shoot coming up from the base. And they will use that to replace that cordon that they're cutting off. So no cosmetic surgery. That's my motto for the vineyard. Crews are really resistant to taking out healthy looking canes and burrs and any kind of wood that looks like it still might be alive. They'll easily take off those dead ones, but they're leaving that canker in the vine. You have to cut back to clean wood. So training the crews is important. This vine has not had appropriate dead arm management. There's a dead canker here. You can see it was cut off here earlier. It should be extending out this way. Another dead canker here, dead spur here. The canker is running here, but the guys didn't cut it off because there's still a live shoot coming here. So if I scrape away some of the wood here, you'll see that it's dead. That's dead wood. Somewhere here, there's still some live wood. That's pretty dead. There's some live wood. The shoot. Okay, so there's a little bit of live wood right there. This crew was not trained well, because this is a comb over, kind of a variation on cosmetic surgery. That training cane should have come from the head of the vine, not the end of the vine that's dying. Sometimes you need to retrain the whole scion. The dead arm disease has just progressed too far. You want to retrain a sucker from way down low on the trunk. Train it up for a year or two, and then make sure to cut off that old vine before that canker gets into that new young vine. Too many times I see the growers don't cut it out, and then your new vine is also infected. This vine is a good example of why you want to do good dead arm management. It's pretty much completely dead on the top here. This cordon was cut off. This cordon was cut off. They tried retraining from this, and it just didn't make it. The canker is here. It's gone down into the head. I don't know how far the canker goes down, but if I do an emergency cut on this vine, we might save its life. When you retrain a trunk sucker and you cut off that old vine, make sure you cut off that old vine in the dry season. That's a big wound, and you've just spent a lot of time training up that little sucker. You don't want it to get infected again, so do it in the dry season. Any wood that's killed by the fungi becomes a spore factory and makes a big spore load for the rest of your vineyard. So anything you can do to reduce that spore load, that's called inoculum, is good for keeping the disease down in your vineyard. So removing the dead wood, spraying the vines with the pruning wound protectant, and also there are bud break, pre-bud break sprays that you can put on that help reduce those spore loads. In summary, good dead arm management improves vineyard economic sustainability, lowers labor costs, is more effective when needed, reduces unnecessary treatments by proper diagnosis, and equals less disease and less need for dormant sprays and other materials.